Hi. In the previous sessions, we had discussed the oxygen transport, oxygen dissociation curve, the factors which forms the oxyhemoglobin, and how the oxygen is transported to the cells for metabolism. And today's discussion is transport of carbon dioxide, which is equally important from NEET point of view. Bacho. So watch this video till the end of this video here and take the notes. Transport of carbon dioxide. There are three methods by which carbon dioxide is transported. The first method is called as the carbon dioxide is transported in the dissolved form. In the dissolved form. That is, when the carbon dioxide is released from the cells, the cell here takes oxygen, metabolism, gives out carbon dioxide, cellular respiration. Here, the carbon dioxide is released into the plasma. Okay, and the carbon dioxide must be transported to which one? Lungs, alveoli, where the exchange of gas occurs, isn't it? The lungs, from the lungs, oxygen is transported via blood here, that is hemoglobin, majorly. And after catabolism, the carbon dioxide is released here, and via the hemoglobin and other agencies, it is now released out to the exhaled air, isn't it? Then how the carbon dioxide is transported from the cells to the alveoli? How it is transported? It is transported in three major methods, Bacho. Three methods are there. The first method is called as in the dissolved state. That is directly dissolved in the plasma. Form in the plasma. Blood plasma. Directly dissolved in the blood plasma. In this way, approximately 7% of carbon dioxide is transported directly dissolved in the plasma. Only 7% here. Okay, it's only an approximation, Bacho, all of you. So next one is the second method as carbamino compounds. Carbamino compounds. The hemoglobin contains two components. One is the heme part, as I explained in the previous lectures, heme part, and next one is the globin part. Globin is a protein which contains the polypeptides, and the polypeptides are made of amino acids. The amino acid contains a NH2 group, other is a carboxyl group, that is COOH group. Okay, students. So NH2 group, that is HB, NH here, that is HB, NH2. What is HbNH2 here? The amine group of this globin part here. HbNH2 group here. And this for this one, the carbon dioxide is mixing here, reacting. Carbon dioxide mixes with the amine group of hemoglobin. I told you that hemoglobin contains two parts. What is that? Heme part and the globin part. Globin is a protein, and the protein is made of polypeptides. The polypeptides are made of amino acids. Each amino acid contains two groups are there. One is a NH2 group, that is amino group. Other is a carboxyl group, COH here. Here we are not bothered with this one. And the carbon dioxide combines with the amino group. This is the amino group here, Bacho. This is the amino group of hemoglobin. This is the hemoglobin, amino group of hemoglobin. Carbon dioxide combines with the amino group of hemoglobin in order to form the carbamino compounds. In order to form the carbamino compounds here, that is CO, NH2, COO minus plus H plus. See here, this is a carbamino compound, also called as carbamino hemoglobin. Carbamino hemoglobin here. NH2COO minus plus H plus. So these two are the ions. Ions are of two different types here. One is a positive ion, other is a negative ion. The positive ion is called as cation. The negative ion is called as the anion. So here the HbNH2 carbamino group here, NH2 group of the hemoglobin, to which the carbon dioxide joins to form a carbamino compound called as carbamino hemoglobin. What is a carbamino hemoglobin here? NH2COO minus. That is a, what is that? Anion. Okay, as a result here, H plus ions are released here. So this, how much of carbon dioxide is transported as carbamino compounds? 20 to 25% approximately. 20 to 25%, sometimes even lesser than, but it's only an approximation. Remember this point. So 20 to 25% of carbon dioxide is transported to the alveoli as carbamino compounds, and 7% of carbon dioxide is transported from the cells to the lungs alveoli. Only 7% of carbon dioxide is transported to the cells alveoli from the cells here to the alveoli in the dissolved form. In the dissolved form, 7%, and as carbamino compounds, 20 to 25% of carbon dioxide is transported here. Okay, students. Now the third method. Till now we have discussed the two methods, isn't it? Now the third method, the major method here. The third method is a major method. 70% or sometimes more than 70%, but minimum 70% of carbon dioxide is transported as bicarbonate ions. Bicarbonate ions. 70% or more than 70% of carbon dioxide is transported as bicarbonate ions. What is bicarbonate ion? HCO3 minus ion. That is a bicarbonate ion here. How this is formed? Let's discuss here. Under this one, this is a major discussion for today, which one of you? See here, this is a major discussion for today. So here cells, this is a cell. All of you know these points. Cell, this is a representation of all the cells here. For diagrammatic explanation, I had students this one. This is a cell tissue cell. Okay. And after catabolism, what is released here? Carbon dioxide is released here after catabolism in mitochondria. Destruction of degradation of glucose molecule by utilization of oxygen, glucose, water. As a result, carbon dioxide, heat, that is temperature here, and ATP are released here. We are not bothered about heat and ATP here. The carbon dioxide is released after catabolism. Released in which one? What is this one? The interstitial spaces here. These are called as the interstitial spaces. So here is a interstitial space here. This one's interstitial space. This is a representation here. Interstitial space. And here contains the interstitial fluid here. Interstitial fluid. That is tissue fluid here. The carbon dioxide is now present in the interstitial space, and which contains the interstitial fluid, tissue fluid. Okay, students. Here, what is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide? PCO2 is very much higher. How much is that one? 45 mmHg, millimeters per mercury. High partial pressure of carbon dioxide is present here. Okay, because more carbon dioxide is released now. That is why more partial pressure of carbon dioxide, which is 45 mmHg, approximately is present here. Now this has to diffuse into which one? Blood, because it has to get transported to the lungs alveoli, isn't it? So various phenomena are observed here. That is, carbon dioxide is present in the tissue fluid. Now it enters the plasma. Plasma. Here, plasma here, a recondition of, you take here, the systemic capillaries, you can see here, systemic capillaries. So these are the systemic capillaries. So here RBC is present, RBCs. So these, what is this one? Systemic capillaries. Systemic capillaries. So after catabolism, carbon dioxide is diffused where the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 45 mmHg. Basing on this one, it is diffused to which one? To the interstitial fluid. The carbon dioxide is diffused to which one? Systemic capillaries. And in here, the partial pressure is compared to lesser. 40, when compared to 45, it is around 40 mmHg here, isn't it? Then it has to diffuse, okay, into the systemic capillaries, which contains the RBCs. These are the RBCs here. Okay, students. Now I am drawing here a bigger RBC here for explanation. Very bigger RBC. So this is the RBC for the explanation purpose. RBCs are present here. This is being explained here, RBC. So when the carbon dioxide is diffused in the systemic capillaries, then it diffuses into which one? RBC. That is, carbon dioxide is present in which one? RBC, inside the RBC. Isn't it? And inside the RBC, hemoglobin is present as you know, isn't it? So carbon dioxide, when it is present inside the RBC, it mixes with the water. It mixes with the water. There the reversible reaction occurs here. Reversible reaction. This is the reversible reaction, isn't it? This is a reversible reaction. Okay, students. And to form the carbonic acid H2CO3. To form the carbonic acid H2CO3 here. Okay. When the carbonic acid is formed, this is a carbonic acid which is formed. Again, the reversible reaction. It is splits instantly into the two ions. One is a cation H plus, other is an anion HCO3 minus ion. This is a bicarbonate ion. So this one is a bicarbonate ion. HCO3 minus ion. This is a hydrogen ion. Hydrogen ion. Cation plus and anion HCO3. This is a bicarbonate ion here. And this reaction occurs in the presence of carbonic anhydrase. What is Ca here? There is no space, that's why I am writing here. Ca means carbonic anhydrase. Carbonic anhydrase is an enzyme. It is present in the plasma also. For example, here is a plasma. This is the RBC. It is present. Carbonic anhydrase is present in plasma as well as the RBC. But the levels of content of this enzyme is much more in the RBCs when compared to plasma. That's why the bicarbonate ions are formed in the plasma as well. But here lesser, 5,000 times. How much? Literally 5,000 times approximately more carbonic acid and bicarbonate ions are formed in the RBCs when compared to the plasma here. Because more content of, more levels, more concentration of carbonic anhydrase is present in the RBCs when compared to the plasma here. That is why the more 5,000 times of more bicarbonic acid and bicarbonate ions are formed in RBCs when compared to the plasma here. Okay, students. So this happens in the presence of carbonic acid is formed in the presence of carbonic anhydrase. When the carbon dioxide is diffused here, then the systemic capillaries which contains RBCs here, these reactions proceeds here, biochemical reactions, carbon dioxide mixes with water. Then in the presence of carbonic anhydrase, it forms which one? H2CO3 means carbonic acid. And carbonic acid instantly splits to the reversible reaction again into the cation and anion H plus plus HCO3 minus ions. This also occurs in the presence of carbonic anhydrase here. Because RBCs contains higher concentrations levels of carbonic anhydrase. So this is a biochemical reaction. As a result, what is formed? Carbonic acid is formed here. What is that? Carbonic acid is formed. As a result, the cation H plus and anion here HCO3 minus ion, that is a bicarbonate ion is formed. Okay, students. Then already you know this, already what is present? Hemoglobin. What is the reaction I told you in the previous class? The hemoglobin is saturated with oxygen in order to form which one? Oxyhemoglobin. This oxyhemoglobin or percentage saturation of oxygen with hemoglobin, it is directly proportional to the partial pressure of oxygen as we have discussed in the previous lecture, isn't it? That is, see here, it contains the hemoglobin and combined with oxygen. Oxyhemoglobin here. This is the oxyhemoglobin. Isn't it already present here? Whether these reactions are going on, then what happens? I told you the oxygen binding capacity affinity with hemoglobin is dependent on which one? Partial pressure of oxygen and partial pressure of carbon dioxide and partial pressure of and what is that? And also the concentration of hydrogen ions. If the partial pressure of oxygen is lesser as at the tissues and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is more as at the tissues and the higher levels of hydrogens are there here. Let's see here, the carbon dioxide levels are more and the hydrogen ions levels are more. This is happening at the tissues. See here, this is happening at the tissues. Isn't it? Tissue cells. Don't forget this one, isn't it? So this is happening in the tissues here. Higher levels of carbon dioxide are there. Isn't it? The partial pressure of carbon dioxide is more. When the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is more and it is mixing with and forms of hydrogen ions, what is that? It leads the loading of carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions leads to the unloading of oxygen from hemoglobin. I told you in the previous lecture also. The loading of carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions leads to the unloading of oxygen. That is, hemoglobin gets dissociated from oxygen. Oxygen dissociation curve, isn't it? Shifting towards the right side, isn't it? So, as a result, what happens? The hemoglobin loses its affinity binding capacity with oxygen. As a result, oxygen is now free. Oxygen is now free. It is now delivered. It is now delivered to which one? Here, systemic capillaries. Here, the interstitial fluid. And then to which one? Cells here. This is the interstitial fluid and then to the cells here. Like this. It is occurring in the reverse here. In the reverse direction here. Carbon dioxide, as the concentration of carbon dioxide increases, then oxygen is unloaded. The loading of carbon dioxide leads to the unloading of oxygen. For every 100 ml of oxygenated blood contains 20 ml approximately of oxygen, but only 5 ml, that is 25% of oxygen is actually delivered to the cells for metabolism, I told you, isn't it? So here in this way oxygen is now unloaded from the hemoglobin and that is dissociated from hemoglobin and supplied to the cells for metabolism here. After metabolism, again what happens? The carbon dioxide is released here, the same reaction proceeds here. Clear? All of you are getting, is absolutely clear, isn't it? So this happens here. That is, what is Bohr effect now? The Bohr effect. We have discussed the effect of the part that is called concentration of carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions levels and the carbon dioxide levels, as they increase, it leads to the unloading of oxygen. Isn't it? Loading of carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions leads to the unloading of oxygen from hemoglobin. That's called as the Bohr effect is seen at the tissue cells here. This Bohr effect is seen at the tissue cells here. Okay, students, all of you. So this is absolutely clear, isn't it? Now I told you that hydrogen ions are formed and bicarbonate ions are formed. Okay, students. When the hydrogen ion, I'm rubbing this one here, okay, to explain further. So hydrogen ions are formed and bicarbonate ions are formed. And I told you that hemoglobin is there here. Hemoglobin is now free because oxygen is here, isn't it? So hemoglobin now binds with the hydrogen ions. Hemoglobin binds with the hydrogen ions. For example, this is hemoglobin. This is hemoglobin, let's assume here. Or else I'll draw here, okay. I'm drawing this one here. This one to explain separately here, okay. So this is, for example, hemoglobin. and this is a hydrogen ion. Hydrogen ion. Hemoglobin binds tightly with the hydrogen ion here. The hemoglobin binds tightly the hydrogen ion. It is not letting loose of this hydrogen ion. If the hydrogen, suppose let's assume that if the hydrogen ions are moving outside the RBCs into the plasma, then it increases the acidity of the plasma here. Blood level acidity is increased here, which is very much dangerous for the human body. In the severe cases, the person may die also. It's not happening, bacho. Why? Because in the normal physiological conditions, the hydrogen ions are severely bounded to which one? The hemoglobin. It is not, because the hemoglobin is a protein, conjugated protein, and it contains the globin, and the globin contains the high amounts of an amino acid called as histidine. Histidine protein is there, so that the hemoglobin can buffer with the hydrogen ion. Hemoglobin can buffer with the hydrogen ions because it contains a high amounts of the concentrations of the amino acid called as histidine. Histidine here. That is the reason here. All of you know this point. Okay, students. Now next point is here. Remaining thing is a bicarbonate ion here. This is a plasma membrane. This is a cell, isn't it? This RBC has told you, isn't it? This is RBC means red blood cell, corpuscle. So it contains a plasma membrane. This is a plasma membrane. This is the plasma membrane here. This plasma membrane can directly HCO3 minus ion, that is bicarbonate ion. The plasma membrane of RBC is highly permeable to bicarbonate ions, HCO3 minus ion. What is permeability? That is, movement is free. There is no restriction. Permeable means the movement is free here. That is, the RBC membrane, plasma membrane is highly permeable to which one? HCO3 minus ion, negative ion here. But it is not permeable to which one? It is totally impermeable to which one? H plus ion. Permeable only to which one? HCO3 minus ion. That's why a few, not all, a few HCO3 minus ions are going across the plasma membrane into the plasma. Plasma membrane into the plasma here. You're following, students, all of you. It's absolutely clear, isn't it? But still some HCO3 minus ions are there. For example, these are the HCO3 minus ions. Only for the sake of understanding here. These are the HCO3 minus ions, for example, inside the RBC. A few, that is, these are going outside here like this. These are going like this here into here. A few are still there in the RBCs, and a few are present in the plasma here. Okay, students. So this is plasma. When HCO3 minus ions are going outside the RBC across this membrane, that is, they are present in which one? Plasma. Then HCO3 minus ions are mixing with the sodium. They are mixing with which one? Sodium here. Sodium, then ions, then it forms into which one? NaHCO3, sodium bicarbonate. NaHCO3 is formed in which one? Plasma. Clear, students? Then what happens to these which are present inside the RBC? Some are present inside the RBC now, isn't it? So these mixes with the potassium ion here to form the potassium bicarbonate, KHCO3. Potassium bicarbonate is formed inside the RBC. Sodium bicarbonate is formed outside the RBC, that is in the plasma here. Okay, so because high amounts of potassium are present in the RBC, whereas sodium in the plasma here. That's the reason. Now, what happens? Because negative ions are disturbed here, equilibrium, the salt balance, electrolyte balance is disturbed. Why it is disturbed, bacho? Because some of the bicarbonate ions, negative ions are moving outside the RBC. Only a few are left inside the RBC. It disturbs which one? Ionic balance, electrolyte balance is disturbed here. So to maintain the equilibrium, some of the chloride ions, this is a plasma, isn't it? From the plasma, some of the chloride ions move into the RBC here. Why the chloride ions? Because it's a negative ion, and bicarbonate ion is also a negative ion. Why this has to move? Because some of the HCO3 minus ions are moving outside the RBC across the plasma membrane into which one? Plasma. Blood plasma, isn't it? As a result, this disturbs the electrolyte balance. Ionic equilibrium is severely disturbed here. As a result, to maintain the ionic equilibrium electrolyte balance for the plasma, the chloride ions, this is also a negative ion, this is also a negative ion. That's why to maintain the equilibrium electrolyte balance, some of the chloride ions are moving into the RBC. When the chloride ions are moving, then the chloride ions also joins with the potassium ions in order to form the KCl, potassium chloride here. Potassium chloride here. Getting your point of view, students? So this is very clear for you, isn't it? So this movement of chloride ions inside the RBCs is called as chloride shift. Chloride shift. Why chloride shift? Because the chloride ions are moving from plasma into the RBC. That's why it's called as a chloride shift, which is also called as Hamburger's shift. Hamburger's shift. Also called as Hamburger's shift or Hamburger's phenomenon. Clear, students? Why the chloride ions have to move? Because some of the bicarbonate ions, HCO3 minus ions, they are moving across the plasma membrane into the plasma. Then it upsets the electrolyte or ionic equilibrium. That's why some of the chloride ions, in order to maintain this electrolyte balance, some of them has to move inside the RBC, and that is called as a chloride shift, or called as a Hamburger's shift or Hamburger's phenomenon. So what are the two effects which are seen here? One is called as a Bohr effect, is seen at the tissue cells, and the second one is called as the chloride shift, which is seen at the tissue cells. It's very clear, isn't it? So 70 or more than 70% of carbon dioxide is transported from tissue cells to the alveoli. Okay, so what happens at the alveoli? Let's discuss now. That's why I had drawn this line. This is a tissue cell. Okay, here is the alveoli lungs here. Alveoli lungs. Representation. So this is a representation of alveoli here, for example. Here is the alveoli. Representation of lungs or alveoli, body, whichever you think, I don't bother. So this is the alveoli. So inhaled air. Air is taken inside here. Okay, that is, this is the alveoli here, isn't it? This is here, carbon dioxide is given out and exhaled out here, and through this process here, oxygen is coming inside here in this direction. So inhaled air, exhaled air here. Okay, inhaled air, oxygen is coming in this direction to the alveoli, and exhaled air from here to outside, and that is released outside here into the atmosphere. So inhaled air, oxygen then enters, which were the same thing here. Here tissues, here alveoli, that's the difference. Okay, here the interstitial fluid, again here interstitial fluid. Interstitial fluid, this is the interstitial fluid. Okay. And the partial pressure of oxygen is more at the alveoli. How much is that one? 104 mmHg. That's why the percentage saturation of oxygen with the hemoglobin is also more, because the partial pressure is more. How much is that one? 104 mmHg, isn't it? So the oxygen is moving across the interstitial fluid. Interstitial fluid then enters which one? The pulmonary capillaries here. Pulmonary capillaries. This all is the representation of the pulmonary capillaries here. These are the systemic capillaries, isn't it? And these are the representation of pulmonary capillaries. Systemic capillaries, pulmonary capillaries here. Okay, students. Now oxygen diffuses this RBC. Now a bigger RBC here again. Very bigger RBC. So this is a representation of RBC here. So oxygen now diffuses into the RBC here. The percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen is directly proportional to which one? Partial pressure of oxygen. If partial pressure of oxygen is more, the percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen is also more here. Inside the RBC, what is present? Hemoglobin is present here, and the oxygen is now binding with the hemoglobin. So as a result, oxygen binds with hemoglobin. What is this one? Oxyhemoglobin. Oxyhemoglobin here. Now the hemoglobin already has which one? H plus ions. Here the twist is there here. See here. Already told you the hemoglobin is bonded with which one? The hemoglobin is already bonded with which one? H plus ions. Buffering, isn't it? Because if the hemoglobin let loose, it allows the H plus ions. What happens? It is going across the plasma membrane into the which one? Plasma. Then it upsets the metabolism of the human being. Severely, in severe cases, it may be fatal also. It is not happening. Why? Because the hemoglobin is binding, buffering with the H plus ion. It is still there here. That's why I repeated here. Hemoglobin is having the H plus ion here. But what is a new development here? Oxygen. Oxygen is new development. Because oxygen binds with which one? Hemoglobin. But oxygen and hydrogen ions are not friends. In common language here, not medical language. Oxygen and hydrogen are not friends. They are not those so. But what is the condition? If oxygen has to bind with hemoglobin, the hemoglobin has to leave hydrogen ions. What is the condition? All of you listen carefully. If oxygen has to bind with hemoglobin, the hydrogen ions must be left. That's why hemoglobin is favoring which one here now? Oxygen, because the partial pressure of oxygen is more. This is at the alveolar capillaries, isn't it? So the partial pressure of oxygen is more. That's why hemoglobin binds with oxygen. But the only condition is this must be left here. That's why this is left. Only the oxyhemoglobin is there, and this is now free here. That is why the H plus ions now mixes with which one? Bicarbonate ions. Because I told you that some of the bicarbonate ions are still left in which one? Inside the RBC. Only a few are going outside the RBC in the plasma. But still some HCO3 minus ions are left in RBC. So H plus ion. There is no way left. Hemoglobin is leaving this H plus ion. Because hemoglobin is binding with which one? Oxygen. Now this bichare, what happens here? H plus ion combines with HCO3 minus ion here. It's there here, isn't it? Then what happens? As you know, it forms into which one? H2CO3, carbonic acid again, in the presence of carbonic anhydrase. When the carbonic acid is formed, what happens? It instantly splits here. I'm writing here. The carbonic acid now splits into which one? Again CO2 plus H2O. The same thing here, reverse. Here these are formed in this direction and these are formed in the reverse direction. That's it. Then again the carbon dioxide is now free here. See here, the carbon dioxide is now free. Okay, when the carbon dioxide is free, the carbon dioxide, because it contains here lesser partial pressure of carbon dioxide is there, then the carbon dioxide is released through the here in the reverse direction. It is released here into the alveoli. It is exhaled out here in the reverse direction. That's it. So what is happening here now? What is determining the release of carbon dioxide? Oxygen binding capacity with hemoglobin. Isn't it? When the oxygen is binding with hemoglobin, this carbonic acid is formed here, and the carbon dioxide and water form, carbon dioxide is released out here, exhaled out. Okay, students. So what is the determining factor here? Oxygen. The partial pressure of oxygen is more at the alveoli, so that the percentage saturation of oxygen with the hemoglobin is more, so that the carbon dioxide is now free. This is called as the Haldane effect here. Haldane effect. So what is the Haldane effect here? Is nothing but the effect, that is the binding capacity of oxygen. As the binding capacity of oxygen with hemoglobin increases, the carbon dioxide is unloaded. okay, to the alveoli, into atmosphere. That is effect of oxygen for the release of carbon dioxide is called as Haldane effect. Oxygen has to bind with hemoglobin, then the hydrogen ions has to be released so that the carbonic acid is formed, so that free form of the carbon dioxide is there and that is released here. That is happening because of which one? Oxygen. That is oxygen loading with hemoglobin leads to the unloading of carbon dioxide. Remember this point? What is Haldane effect? Oxygen loading with hemoglobin leads to the unloading of carbon dioxide to the alveolar area. That's it. That is called as the Haldane effect here. That is, what is Bohr effect? The effect of carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions on the unloading of oxygen. Loading of carbon dioxide leads to the unloading of oxygen. That is called as a Bohr effect. And the loading of oxygen leads to the unloading of carbon dioxide. That is called as the Haldane effect. That is exactly opposite of Bohr effect is a Haldane effect here. This Bohr effect is occurring at the tissue cells, whereas Haldane effect is occurring at which one? Alveolar lungs here, like this here. Now I told you that the chloride shift. What is chloride shift here? In the cells, this one here. What happens here? Chloride ions, because some of the bicarbonate ions are moving, isn't it? Outside the RBCs, because this is permeable only to the negative ions, but not to the positive ions like H+. So some of the H+ ions are moving outside the RBCs, so that it disturbs the electrolyte balance, ionic equilibrium. To rebalance here, that is to balance this one, what is now happening? The chloride ions are moving from plasma into the RBC. This is called as a chloride shift, I told you, isn't it? So here, what is happening here? The H+ ions are losing now. H+ ions are losing here. That is HCO3 minus ions are losing. Why? Because H+ ions are combining with HCO3 minus ions. That's why HCO3 minus ions are losing. As the oxygen binding capacity increases, the HCO3 minus ions are converted to carbonic acid. When combined with H+, the carbonic acid is formed, then the carbon dioxide is leaving here. That is, the bicarbonate ions are lost from this one, isn't it? Obviously, the bicarbonate ions are lost. It severely upsets the ionic equilibrium here. Why? Because more bicarbonate ions are lost, isn't it? In this process here. So, to balance, to maintain the equilibrium, what happens? More bicarbonate ions here. Because which are present in the plasma. I told you some of the bicarbonate ions are present in the plasma as well, isn't it? That's why some of the bicarbonate ions which are present in plasma, they come back into the RBC. Why? Because the bicarbonate ions are now split into which one? CO2 plus H2O here from the carbonic acid here. So that the bicarbonate ions are lost. When the bicarbonate ions are lost, what happens? The RBC electrolyte balance is disturbed. Ionic equilibrium is disturbed. As a result, what happens? Some of the bicarbonate ions which are present in the plasma are re-entering the RBCs. But actually, what are present inside? The chloride ions are also there now. Chloride ions are also there. Because of the increasing influx of these bicarbonate ions, that is incoming of the bicarbonate ions, the chloride ions now goes back into the plasma here. That is, what is chloride shift? The coming inside of the chloride ions from plasma into RBC is called as a chloride shift. And efflux, that is, efflux means outward movement of chloride ions from RBCs into plasma is called as a reverse chloride shift. What is this called as a reverse chloride shift? Reverse chloride shift here. This is a chloride shift. What is chloride shift? The chloride ions, in order to maintain the ionic equilibrium, are shifted from plasma into RBC is called as a chloride shift. Whereas the reverse chloride shift means vapas. That is, the chloride ions are going vapas from RBC into plasma here. Reverse chloride shift, that's called as a. So, what are the two phenomena observed here? One is called as a Haldane effect, other is called as a reverse chloride shift, which are seen at the tissue cells here. Sorry, lungs, alveolar lungs here. And what is the phenomenon? Two phenomena see in the case of these tissue cells. One is called as a Bohr effect, other is called as a chloride shift here. Reverse happens here. That is here chloride shift, reverse chloride shift. Here Bohr effect, there Haldane effect here. It's absolutely clear, isn't it? In this way, for every 100 ml of deoxygenated blood or venous blood, it delivers approximately 4 ml of carbon dioxide to the alveoli. It's a standard point, very important point. Every 100 ml of venous blood or deoxygenated blood delivers approximately 4 ml of carbon dioxide to the alveoli here. Isn't it? So that is the standard value here. Okay, students.